Hi, my name is Jared, and this is Horror Obsession. Today, I want to start with a series I'm going to be doing looking at some aspects of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. This franchise as a whole has a lot of issues, since pretty much everything after Dream Warriors fell somewhere in the spectrum of bad but wonderfully entertaining to extremely devastatingly bad. This excludes New Nightmare, which is actually fantastic and almost as good as the first Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984, directed by Wes Craven, which is a powerhouse of a slasher film and probably my all-time favorite slasher. I recently posted a video criticizing the horrible script, boring directing, lame cinematography, poor lighting, and uninventive kills of the Friday the 13th 2009 remake, and got a lot of people messaging me about how the movie was actually pretty good, and the slasher genre is full of unlikable shitty characters anyway, and I shouldn't be so hard on it. Well, I decided it may be useful to take a look at a movie that is actually good and succeeds in all of the ways Friday 2009 fails. The main thing I want to analyze is how to construct a slasher kill scene. In Friday 2009, Fuck Christmas guy gets shot in the head with an arrow, completely unexpectedly and out of the blue. This is the worst way to do this, since there is no suspense and the audience simply has a short, meaningless moment of surprise. In Nightmare, when we are transitioning into Act 3, Kill the Victims, Wes Craven really shows how it's done with this death scene of Tina. I'm going to break down this scene into the nitty-gritty details, but I hope you'll follow along since I will explain why this is so much better. I'm going to show this scene in short clips, then take a look at the blocking, framing, cinematography, acting, and editing for each clip and why it all synergizes so well together.
Ron?
Alright, so we start with an establishing shot of outside the house, followed by a wire zoom in on the bedroom window. We cut to inside, and a medium full two-shot of Tina and Rod. Tina keeps hearing strange noises. This is a good shot because at first the audience is intended to think they are together, hence the two-shot, which just means that there are two characters in the frame. This strength in numbers is very basic human instinct, and Wes wants to peel away this layer of perceived safety for the audience. So the medium full shot continues until Tina hears a strange noise a third time, and then it cuts to a medium close-up single of just Tina. Medium close-up shows a bit of the character beyond just their face, keeping the audience aware of the environment surrounding a character more than just a regular close-up. The framing here is a single because now Tina is alone in this scene, isolated despite being right next to Rod. As the scene progresses, Tina's blocking, which just means the way a character moves within a scene, moves her directly into a full close-up single, taking the audience on the transition completely to Tina's perspective.
Who do you think you are? Whoever you are.
Next, there is a very quick shot of Tina in a medium shot, blocking right to left, and then a cut to another medium close-up of Tina looking out the window. We are completely in Tina's perspective now, which is obviously what you want because the audience is supposed to be scared. She looks out the window, and what she sees we see, an empty yard. Wes then goes backward through the same progression of shots, starting with the medium close-up, which is where we last saw Tina. The next cut is back to a medium of Tina, still alone, but putting us back inside the house with Tina rather than outside the window, where we were. Something breaks the glass, and we don't see it until once again we are outside the house, and there is this great shot of Tina looking at the object from the perspective outside the window. Continually putting the audience outside the house, the exact area Tina is afraid of, works well to make the audience feel uncomfortable and a bit worried about something, not clear yet, which is also good. Don't give it away too quickly. Alright, next we cut back inside, a close-up of Tina. As the scene has moved along, we have moved more and more into Tina's headspace, taken her perspective, and now we are as close to her as possible. She is whispering to herself, and we are right there for it. The next cut is back to Nancy in a medium full single of her sleeping. From this angle, we get the amazing shot of the stretching wall, and Nancy spontaneously wakes up, causing the wall to return to normal. This is a great choice because it creates a little suspense about who actually is in danger in this scene. Obviously now we are all aware that Nancy is the final girl, and the whole quote-unquote sin factor...
Sex equals death, okay? Number 2, you can never drink or do drugs. No, the sin factor. It's a sin. It's an extension of number 1.
Trope is so well established, I think most people would predict Tina is the one who bites it, but at the time, I am sure the scene had audiences legitimately questioning who was in danger, and anytime you can put multiple characters in danger at once, you should do it. Alright, next a medium close-up single of Nancy, followed by an insert shot, which just means a shot of an object or prop showing the cross. Then back to the medium full single of Nancy, and she replaces the cross, knocks on the wall to make sure it's solid, and everything appears to have returned to normal.
Somebody there?
Tina. Tina.
Who the hell is that?
Wes then cuts and goes back to an establishing shot of the house, but this time, rather than zooming into Tina's window, Tina shows up in the frame through the window. The prior scene had helped establish a sense of safety with being inside the house, and at first Tina is framed through the window, inside the safety of the house. Her blocking takes her outside the house, and the camera follows her to bring us back into her perspective. By taking her out of the house, Wes has removed this protection, and to hammer home this theme of vulnerability, Wardrobe has her mostly exposed, wearing only Rod's shirt. Side note, I love when girls do this. I don't know if it's because seeing the fact that your shirt is large enough to function as a dress for them is cute or something. I don't know, but I love it. Alright, so anyway, the camera follows Tina as she leaves the house, and the further from the house she gets, the more isolated in the frame she becomes, culminating with her standing right next to the camera in the close-up.
Tina.
She goes from full shot, to a medium full, to a medium shot, to a medium close-up, to a close-up. This is done in one continuous take, since you want the pace and the speed of the cuts within a scene to match the tension, and so far we are just getting started. So, slow tone of the camera, continuous shot, minimal cuts. Wes cuts quickly to Tina's perspective, staring off towards the yard to make sure the audience is fully back in Tina's shoes and empathizing with her. Then we cut back to Tina in a close-up and back to the environment, but this time Tina is blocking through it, taking the audience on the same journey Tina is about to embark on.
God.
This is God.
We get a new establishing shot of the new environment, signaling to the audience we have moved locations. The safety of the house is now gone. Tina comes in from the right in the full shot, and quickly something is not right, and we get a close-up shot of the trash can spinning, showing that Tina is not alone. Something is out here too. Important, because this shows the new location to be a perilous place, something the audience picks up on and is now worried about for Tina. There are a few quick cuts here, first to Tina in close-up single turning around, then quickly back to the object we witnessed, back from the same angle as the original establishing shot. As the tension of the scene is building, we are now getting faster cuts. Remember how the opening part of this scene had long, drawn-out scenes of Tina walking with minimal cuts? That established the slow tone, and now we are ramping up. And right on cue, here comes Freddy. First, we see a shadow of his hat against the fence, and that's it. Wes is keeping his cards close to the vest here. At this point in the movie, we haven't seen Freddy yet, so he wants to keep the audience's imaginations running wild. We are in Tina's perspective, so naturally as the audience notices Freddy coming around the corner, so does Tina, and we get a close-up reaction single of her turning and noticing Freddy. This hard cuts to Freddy in a medium close-up, and notably the lighting shows us a little bit of his disgusting, oozing face before his blocking transitions him into a silhouette. This is just a teaser. One core tenet of horror movie making is the unknown is scarier than the known, so keeping Freddy's exact nature a mystery is important. Next, we see Tina in a close-up again, making sure we are still in her perspective and experiencing the terror through her eyes. Important to get these fear reactions from the characters too. If Tina's scared, we're scared. Nice, subtle acting here by Amanda Weiss. Doesn't go over the top, screaming, yelling, and crying. The audience doesn't know anything about Freddy yet, and neither does Tina, so this restrained acting is perfect for this. Alright, next we see Freddy's arms are extending out, the first evidence of surrealism in the scene, and showing the dream world's rules are easily broken, especially by Freddy. This shows he has unique power in here. And then this cuts to a medium close-up single of Freddy, once again in silhouette, then back to Tina, and I want to point out that so far we haven't had any doubles. Tina and Freddy are exclusively shot in single, so there is no concept for the audience of how far away these characters are in relation to one another, which, once again, is scary as adding additional unknown variables creates more mystery, and the unknown is scarier than the known. Next, we get Freddy back in a full single, cut to an insert shot of Freddy's claws. This is a good shot to include because you want the killer's weapon and object of fear to be established, which it was in the opening scene where we saw him crafting them in his hellish dungeon lair. Tina doesn't know what to make of this, and we get shot counter shot of close-up singles of Tina and Freddy, and notice once again the editing of this scene is happening much more quickly now. The tension of the scene has been built, and the long, drawn-out, continuous shots from earlier are completely absent now. Tina turns to run, and finally there is a master shot of the scene. Master shot is typically used after the establishing shot. The establishing shot is used to show the location of a scene, and the master shot is used to establish the relation of the characters to each other. In horror, sometimes you don't want the audience to know this relationship for the reason mentioned earlier, so here we get a master shot all the way at the end of the scene. Also, this is the first shot which has a two-shot, and includes both Tina and Freddy, confirming the audience's suspicion that yes, Tina is in trouble. Tina has this kind of flailing runaway while Freddy chases, and it is kind of a goofy run for both of them, but this isn't a dream, and I think they are trying to capture that. Or she is running that way because she doesn't have shoes on, I don't know, either way it ends up doing the trick. The camera follows Tina's blocking away from Freddy, and briefly the two-shot transitions back to a single, with Tina in medium full shot showing the audience that perhaps she can get away. Tina certainly thinks she has escaped. The camera follows, and bam, Freddy is somehow over here now. Wes has this as a continuous shot without cuts, reminding the audience of the safety associated with these shots earlier, and to create a sense of surrealism with Freddy somehow being in two places at once. The effect is fantastic, and Tina turns back to run the other way. Wes cuts to the other way, and Tina is back in single, framed in medium shot, a bit closer than the last shot, reeling the audience into Tina's perspective again. The camera follows Tina, and we get some shaky cam, which is fine here since this creates the effect of something chasing Tina. Overuse of shaky cam is bad, and I typically don't like it, but if you are going to use it, this is how you do it.
Watch this.
The camera cuts back to the yard establishing shot, showing we have transitioned locations again, and Tina is still in single, indicating maybe she got away. She's running kind of goofy still, and she passes the camera. The camera is still, with no pans, zooms, or any movement at all, which puts us more in relation to the environment than to the character. In this environment, we see Freddy appear from behind this tree. Remember, we went inside house, outside house, yard, alley. Now we are moving back. Alley, yard, outside house. The house, both visually to the audience and within the internal dream logic of the movie, represents safety for Tina. So next we see Tina, and she is back in close-up, but outside the house, an area shown multiple times to represent danger. She is looking at Freddy, so we see what she sees, which is Freddy in a medium full single. Quickly cut back to Tina, panned out a bit to a medium close-up, and back to Freddy, also in medium close-up. Tina sees Freddy cut off his own fingers, which is pretty deranged, and shows Freddy is not worried about being injured, and he has weird, non-human blood, creating many questions, and the unknown is scarier than the known. Next, we cut to Tina in close-up to get a reaction to all of this. Looks like she's moved on from her stoic confusion to a bit of raw terror and disgust. Once again, wonderfully acted by Amanda Weiss. Quick cut to Tina, trying to run inside the house, starting in a single and quickly having Freddy invade the safety but entering screen right behind Tina. Once again, this scene shot all the opening shots of the characters in single, but provided no information to the audience about how far away Freddy and Tina were from each other. Now the same trick is used. This time, however, Freddy is actually right next to Tina, the exact scenario you're hoping is not the case. Alright, so Freddy grabs Tina out of this continuous shot, removing the previously established safety of the continuous shots. Tina stumbles and falls down, some quick edits of the table falling over them. Remember, we want some quick edits to keep the tension high. So Tina is in a two-shot with Freddy here, framed over the shoulder, or OTS, then quick cut to Tina's perspective of Freddy in close-up, and she removes his face and he is just laughing. Pretty terrifying. Quick cut back to Tina in a two-shot OTS, she gets covered by the blanket, which puts her back in bed with Rod. Cut to Rod in bed, and you'll notice there is no establishing shot or master shot here since Wes wants the audience to be a bit disoriented, just like Tina is. Rod is shown in medium close-up since Wes wants us to now be in his perspective. Next we see Rod in what is essentially a medium full shot single, though we can see Tina thrashing underneath the covers, so I could be talked into a double here. To establish what is going on under there, the question Rod is surely wondering, Wes gives us a shot under the covers with Freddy and Tina in a medium close-up two-shot. A very intimate shot, which is of course terrifying based on what Tina's experienced. You don't want to be in an intimate shot with a guy with knives on a glove who cuts off his own fingers. They struggle for a second, and we cut back to Rod to reinforce that we are now in his perspective. His blocking moves him away from Tina and the camera follows him, making sure we know we are in his perspective now. Since this perspective is established, the next shot is of Rod's perspective as he pulls the blanket off Tina, who we see thrashing in a medium full single. Clearly she is shot this way because Wes wants us to see that she is alone, making what happens to her next all the more terrifying. Quick cut back to Rod in medium single so we can get his reaction to this, which is bewilderment, naturally. A couple cuts back and forth from Rod to Tina, both in single, showing their isolation and vulnerability despite being right next to each other. We get a close-up of Tina's chest, just in time to see it spontaneously get brutally sliced open by Freddy, cut back to Rod's reaction, then back to Tina in a full shot so we can see she is still alone, a couple back and forths from Tina floating and spinning in the area, and Rod in medium. Then finally when we see them in two-shot, Tina spins and hits Rod in the face. Their relation to each other in the space of the scene is not conveyed until their closeness is relevant. Once again, great job. Rod and Tina go flying to opposite corners, and we see this, both characters in single, immediately isolated after the only two-shot of them briefly brought them together. A few quick cuts back and forth, then we get Tina in what is essentially a master shot OTS as the dimensions of the room are finally shown. The audience has to watch what happens to Tina here, just as Rod does, and they reach for each other, desperately trying to end this. And then a quick cut to Nancy for the first time in a while, in medium, waking up, and then quickly back to Tina, once again alone in single full shot, quickly back to Rod for his reaction close-up, then finally Tina falls to the bed with the camera following her down. Some blood splashes on Rod, confirming the reality of what just happened, and getting some blood on Rod for plot purposes. Tina falls onto the ground from the bed, and we finally cut back to Rod in medium close-up, covered in blood with the evidence of the suffering Tina just went through all over him. The scene keeps going from there, but I wanted to talk you through just the dream sequence section to show how a master of the horror craft constructs a scene to drag the audience on this terrible journey with the characters. Compare this to Friday 2009, where a guy gets shot with an arrow, and the scene from the start of the danger to the character's death is like a millisecond long. No tension or suspense at all. Wes Craven, on the other hand, really knew how to make a horror movie, and specifically how to make a scary horror scene, and I hope this video has you interested in the artful crafting of horror movies and maybe even infected you with an incurable form of horror obsession.